Alright, hello everyone. This is the next in my series of painting Song of Ice and Fire miniatures, and today we are going to be tackling, at a minimum, how to do the pinks for House Bolton, and perhaps going through an entire model depending on how my time's looking. So the model we're going to be looking at today is going to be Ramsay, Snow, or Bolton, depending on what you want to name him. But we've got him zenithal highlighted, as we did in my first video about how to do that. So get him in focus. There we are. So you can see he's already got a lot of the shading work done on him. And at the end of this, I'm hoping to have him looking sort of similar to this guy. So we're going to look at doing some dark armors. He's got some very easy ink washes on there, and ink paintings, as I've shown in other videos. So let's get right into the pink. So the colors we're going to be working with to start the pink is going to be P3's Scorn Red and P3's Thrall Flesh. We are not using white to make the pink because I don't want it to be pink, but I want it to be sort of a fleshy pink, and the Thrall Flesh has a slight green tinge to it. So at the end of this, it should end up looking a slightly brown, sickly pink. So also on the palette, I've got some matte polymer varnish by Bolton. Alright, so all we're going to do is we're going to drag some of the red out, drag some of the Thrall Flesh out, and just start mixing the two of them together until we get a satisfying pink color. And now I'm going to start dragging in my varnish. Make sure everything gets into a good mix. I put way too much on the palette. I've been used to covering all my forces. This is my last Bolton guy to paint. I painted everybody else up because I had a lot of fun doing this pink. So I've gotten used to mixing up enough to do like all my cat at once or something. Alright, so once you have done that and you got your pink, you're going to go ahead and dry off that brush a bit because you don't want too much of that on there. That's how it is with all these glazes. Alright, make sure we're going to focus on this guy. And I'll turn off autofocus. Alright. Okay, so this should stay pretty much in focus. Alright, so we're going to take the brush and we're just going to start painting on that pink. Got to make sure that it's not too wet because you don't want bubbles to form. But as this sort of glazes on there, it's going to have a little less translucency than the inks that we've been using. But to do a pink, you're going to have that. Even if you mixed up a pink that you liked with your inks, the pink, that lighter color, is usually going to be made up with a titanium white. And titanium white has zero translucency. Although with that bonus tip, I was just watching a video of someone who had just discovered using inks in their airbrush. And they had done the zenithal highlighting with nothing but white ink. And I don't know why I didn't think of doing that, and I've been using white paint, because of course ink is going to flow a lot easier through your airbrush and still give you good coverage. I need to throw this brush away, or at least regulate it down to dry brushing. It's splitting all over the place. Let's try a different brush here. Make sure it's dried off. Alright, we're just going to go ahead and keep coating this up. We want a nice smooth coat of the pink. And this is probably going to take 2 coats to get it on there nice. Again, with how much paint I mixed up, if you're working on an entire squad, it should be close to dry by the time you get back to the first trooper. But I think with Ramsey here, I'm going to end up pausing it and hitting the hairdryer. Make sure this is dry and ready to go for the next coat. So that way you guys aren't watching paint dry, because I know how fun that is. What did you do on YouTube today? Oh, I watched some guy paint miniatures and I watched the paint dry. It was lots of fun. He said no one ever. But yeah, I'm excited about the Boltons. Gives you an army that you can field with either side, depending on when in the war you're trying to represent. Although, who knows with this alternate timeline. I've got Ned Stark, so I haven't painted him yet. It's almost like if I wanted to use him just as a non-combat character to influence stuff, I could just cut off his head, throw it on a pole, and say, yep, he's influencing. The North's just really mad that you guys killed Ned Stark. I think that'd be fun for games. Alright. I think I've got just about everything covered. I go back through and take a look. And you'll notice that things look a little purplish where the black is shining through the most. And that's great, because we're going to add, some of our shading is going to be with Citadel Shade, Derici Violet. I have no idea what Citadel names are, because I am not up on the lore. I mean, I know what a Space Marine is, but that's about as far as it goes. Alright, so there's our first coat. We're going to go ahead and stop this for a second, and when I come back, this will be dry, and we'll put on a second coat. Okay, we're back. We've done the hairdryer now, and as you can see, we've got some shading going on thanks to the pink glaze. And our next job is we want to punch those shadows quite a bit. So to punch those shadows, we are going to do another glaze, and we're going to add a little bit more of the thrall flesh to it. We want it to be a little lighter than the other color. We're just going to come, whoop, I just bumped the camera. Sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and mix in just a little bit more of that thrall flesh into our color. Lighten it up just a bit. Bring it to a slightly more yellow color. And with this color, what we want to do is come in and catch the edges and where the sun's really going to hit and work on a highlight. We don't want it to be absolutely opaque because we don't want to lose our underlayer, but this should be enough to help really punch it. And you also need to deal with the challenge. This is sort of counterintuitive, but you want your brush to be fairly dry. If your brush is wet, the paint's going to pool, and then you won't be able to control it. Plus, with this being translucent, we don't have to worry so much about our blends. The translucency of the color will help it blend itself out. So again, I'm just going to try to catch those highlights. Just the top raised edges of his cloak. And of course, you can take this method to any of your other Bolton forces, depending on what bit of cloth you want to paint pink. Or you can do nice smooth blends on the shields, which is what I've done with the cavalry. Yeah, just go ahead and keep grabbing those areas that we want to have grab a little bit more light, and draw the paint across it. Alright. one level of highlight, and we're going to go right into the next one with everything still wet. So I'm just going to come over here and blend a little bit more of the yellow in. This is going to be as pink as we get. And now we have almost, well, I don't know, we can look at it. It's really, you could make a flesh tone with that and paint your miniatures with it and be doing all right with, by adding just a little bit of that greeny yellow to your reds, you can make a nice flesh tone. That is a very rosy brown flesh. So proving that you don't have to spend a lot on your paints if you don't want to. You can just get a few colors and learn how to mix. What I had to do when I was in school way back when, and I was learning how to oil paint. There aren't a multitude of colors for oil paints, and even with what colors there are, a lot of them are prohibitively expensive to just go buying because you don't want to mix your colors. One of the reasons I thought I didn't like oil painting for a long time is because I was afraid to experiment with the paints because of how much I was spending on them in school, and being not just a poor starving artist, but a poor starving artist going to college. And I was like, I think I'll stick with acrylics. These are kind of cheap. And then these days, everything I do is digital. Take all my painting skills and just do it on Photoshop with a Wacom tablet and call it good. Alright, and we're almost done pulling out this top pink. And then we're going to do some blends of red ink into the bottom to make it look more like the other Ramsey. Alright, so a little bit won't be as shiny in a second, but there you go. See that we've got some nice shadows. I think what we're actually going to do next is I'm going to show you how we put in just a little purple. I'm going to put it up top closer to the fur, blend that in, deepen those shadows. I kind of like the bottom ones. And after that, you could just say, hey, I'm done, that looks great. And I did that with most of my Bolton models. But on Ramsey, I specifically blended in a bit of red, so I may or may not do that. Or I may wait until I'm not doing this video to do that. Alright, so we're going to take our Zenithal Crimson ink. I usually don't like to put this on a wet palette, but there we go. I'll use it a little bit. And that will be for just a moment. And what I do want to do right now, I'm getting ahead of myself, is we're going to take some of that violet shade, brush of that, and we're going to get a little puddle of it there so we can control it better and dry off that brush just a bit. Alright, and this we're going to want to paint it into up. I want to draw it up. And we want to keep making sure that the concentration is the highest towards the fur. Help define that edge. Find that. This whole back side right here would be out of the sun, so we'll hit that. So I'll make sure I don't leave any bubbles in there, because those will dry funny. If you've got a bubble there, just brush it out. If you really need to, grab a second brush and poke it. blend up, blend up, blend up. And I'll help deepen those shadows up top and give you a little bit more differentiation. And let's go ahead and put some here under the arm. Really sink that back into the shadow. Do it under the cloak, or under the undercloak here, under his legs. And we'll blend a little bit right up here. Just go ahead and push it into the areas you want to shade. Just keep smoothing that color out. All right. So, being that this is a GW product, that should definitely dry to a nice matte. I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a second and hit it with a hairdryer real quick so we can make sure it dries up nice. All right, so we have went ahead and hit that. It's not completely dry yet, but we can see it's a lot less shiny. All right, so at this point, let's go ahead and blend in some reds. So this, we want to do our ink, but we want our ink to be a little watered. So add a little bit of moisture to that ink. Dry off your brush. We don't want heavy ink going on here. Get a little bit more water in that. So we want to glaze that red on. Alright, so we're going to do several layers of this red glaze. I'm just going to go ahead and brush it on. And for this, you want to have a second brush available. Just go ahead and hit that edge so you can blend it out. Right away, you want to get in there before it has time to dry. And get rid of that line. And like I said, I didn't do this for any of the troopers. This is, supposed to be in the idea of speed painting these. This is definitely not a speed paint technique. But, your hero characters, your named characters, I always feel they should have a little bit more going on. Give them a little more visual interest on the table. Okay. There is a first coat. We've made it a little more red. We want to ignore that bit under his legs. Not going to really see that anyhow. Let me go ahead and hit this. And quickly come in and brush across that and blend it out. There we are. We've got a blend. Did it mean a little more red? Looks like that. See a little bit of a tide mark there. See if we can blend that out. Normally I would start below the line, but that didn't blend as nice as I wanted it, so we'll go a little above it. Hopefully add some more tint to make that blend a little smoother. We're just going to keep drawing our color down. here. I guess just a little more red. Alright. You can see we're definitely getting a heavier red tint. And grab a little bit more of just the red ink. Barely touching it with the brush, I don't want too much. Brush that in as well. I don't know if I'm going to take this as red as the other Ramsey. I almost think I did that too red. I was supposed to be working on my thesis, and instead I decided to glaze some red, and I glazed some more red, and I glazed some more red because I wanted to be doing anything but my homework at that point. And my wife yells at me. I say, damn it, I'm 40 years old. I can do what I want. That didn't go over well. Just want to add that fine, a little bit of red tint, and really punch that. All right, we finish up with a hair dryer. I don't think the miniature is so warm that we can't continue, but we'll see in a moment. But yeah, you can see how that pink over our white is already giving us some shading, although not as much as we would get with a traditional just ink over it. All right, so with the next coat, again, we're gonna just take a little bit of this color. God, I make so much of this. All right, so with this one, we've got shading already established, and I'm kind of happy with that shading, but I want to punch the shading. I might add some purple like closer to the cloth to give some color variation, but with this next coat of the pink, I'm just going to concentrate on the highlights and where light would fall. So I want to just bump up the contrast. So you're just going to go in and you're going to hit those raised edges and make it a little more pink. Anywhere that would catch more light. Go ahead and make sure I'm not losing my frame. Sorry if the miniature is drifting off frame there. It's so hard to paint around a camera. So yeah, if you're watching other people paint and they're keeping that thing on frame and they are working around a camera, just know that if they're still painting something that looks awesome, they're fantastic painters, because it is really hard to do this around a camera. I mean, I'm not painting any of these models to be competition winners, but I've done competitions and done well at them. I'm decent at this, but painting around a camera is a completely strange challenge. Yeah, see, I'm not in focus. There we are. Refocus and turn off the autofocus so it stops trying to grab things up. And yeah, just going to keep coming through here and just trying to punch that pink where we didn't get enough coverage. Under the legs, I mean, that is an area that's in shadow, but it was in so much shadow from the zenithal highlight that the black really shows through, and it makes the pink with the first coat look really spotty. So that's something else you've got to keep in mind, that sometimes your shadows are not going to be worth keeping if the pink over the top of it is really spotty in coverage. So at that point, it's worth it to go ahead and do another glaze of color, and then you can come back in with a darker color and blend in your shadow. Especially when we got a product as easy to use as the Richie Violet, or however you say it. I remember when they had easy colors to pronounce, like Skaven Yellow and stuff like that, Plague Brown. Easy, no-nonsense names. Even some of them are still good. I mean, when you can buy a product called Blood for the Blood God, how can you not love that? Makes you want to go out and paint some Chaos Space Marines. Maybe anybody can comment. I don't get too many comments on here, but if somebody can tell me if they've ever had a Necron named paint. Seems like they would have a market for like a Necron green. You don't always get those little green plastic pieces, which I can't decide if it's lots of fun that they include that green plastic that seems to glow and transfer light, or if it's really cheesy. Maybe a little bit of both. All right. So, there we go. We've got... All right, seems as though my time is just about up. So I had to pause it there for a second. And so we're just going to go ahead and you can keep glazing on your red just like we were looking at, doing less and less at a time, and you bring it up to make Ramsey's cloak look like there is a bloody mess at the bottom of it. If you really wanted to look like blood, I would add just a touch of dark brown ink to it as well, and really kind of push that whole scabby idea. Since I don't have time, I'm going to just call this it for doing the Bolton forces, and so you can go ahead and ink them the rest of the way you want. To look at this model, I used a dark sepia ink to do the legs and to do the shirt. I did a sepia and then some washes of Nuln Oil on the fur, sepia for the hair, painted the flesh as I painted other fleshes. That red is the Privateer Press brown ink on his scabbard. And to do the armor, which is the only thing that's a little fancy on this guy, let's see if I can get him back into focus. There we are. So the armor is the only thing that's a little fancy on that. Just paint that with a darker iron color. I think I used P3 pig iron on that. And then I washed it with 3 or 4 coats of Nuln Oil. Once you've washed it with your Nuln Oil, you can hit it with either a dry brush or blend back up to your high silvers. And a little bit of gold to pick out the buckles and his sword, and that is it. He's actually not a hard model to paint, and if I have time I will come back on and show you the finished second Ramsey model. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.